What's up, everybody? It's Coach Medina coming at you from Dyer, Indiana, my mom and dad's house. I'm just kind of like here trying to figure everything out, trying to give you guys some review because as we move forward, I'm going to be having you guys read and react to some questions. But right now what I wanted to do is I wanted to review with you guys what is going on in the first act of Othello. And then after that, you guys are going to go and work on Act 2, starting with Scene 1 on your own. So you're here, hopefully, after you've commented. So the first thing you need to do right now is comment on that post that you are going to watch this video. And then, after this video is done, on the YouTube comments, I need you to comment that you have watched this video, okay? Just so that I know that you guys are still keeping up and making sure that you guys are participating and stuff like that, okay? So the first thing that I want to get over is I want to kind of like set the scene one more time with Othello. So in Act 1, we get the middle of conversation between Iago and Rodrigo, both people who do not like Othello at all. Iago was passed over for a promotion that he thought he was supposed to get by Othello. Othello promoted this guy named Michael Cassio, so Iago hates Cassio and Othello. He hates him a lot. Rodrigo is really bummed out because Desdemona, which is his crush, he finds out ended up marrying Othello, and they both kind of hate Othello because of their own certain reasons. Iago's like, yo, let's go mess with Barbantio, which is Desdemona's father, and let's say that he's been robbed, right? So they go to this house at the middle of the night. They're yelling, "You've been robbed! You've been robbed!" Barbantio comes out. He's like, "Yo, what are you talking about?" Right? And those guys are like, "Yo, you've been robbed." And he's like, "I've not been robbed. Nobody's in my house. I'm fine." And they're like, "Yo, you haven't been robbed by your money. The more Othello robbed your family. He stole your daughter." And so Barbantio is like, "What? That's crazy." He goes in there, checks, finds out that his daughter's not there. So there is some validity to their claims. Barbantio is like, "Yo, like, who? I know who it is. I know this is Rodrigo." He's like, "Are you sure that this is possible?" Iago knows that he can't get caught. He can't get in the middle of this situation, so he slides out, kind of like the slithery snake that he is after he causes all this mayhem. He's like, yo, he tells this to Rodrigo, his boy. He's like, yo, I can't get in the middle of this. I'm just going to sneak out. Othello needs to know that I am his right-hand man, that he can trust me and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave after them causing all this mayhem. He's like, let's try to get Barbantio as pissed off as he can so that he can come after Othello. That was basically Scene 1, right? Then we get to Scene 2, and I just want to, we read it in class, but I do want to kind of go over some stuff with you guys, just in case you're confused or anything like that, or if you forgot. So in Act 1, Scene 2, we start with Othello. He's kind of like, it's at night, chilling. Iago comes up and he warns Othello about Barbantio. He's like, yo, this guy Barbantio, he's talking mad stuff about you, right? After Iago was just over there yelling at him like, you've been robbed, right? So he's playing both sides again. He's a snake. He's not a real true friend. So he tells Barbantio like, yo, or he tells Othello, sorry, Iago tells Othello that Barbantio is going to be going after him. Now, Barbantio he's not a duke, but he's a pretty powerful guy. He's in the Senate, and he's a respected fella in the town. So he's not somebody that you want mad at you, right? So then Iago has to make sure that he shows loyalty to Othello. So he's kind of like telling him, yo, you're my boy, da 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 da. I want to make sure that you're okay, right? So Iago is showing his loyalty to Othello. Loyalty, right? Othello didn't do anything wrong. He's very confident that nothing's going to happen. He fell in love with Desdemona the normal way. He loves her. She loves him. They got married in the church. It's nothing like super, illegal or anything bad about it. The only thing is that they're different races, and at that time, it's a huge deal, right? So Othello is called to the Duke by Michael Cassio. So Othello is having a conversation with Iago, and all of a sudden some dudes with torches come out, and it's Michael Cassio. That is the guy that Iago also hates because Othello promoted Michael Cassio instead of Iago. So Cassio comes up and he's like, yo, the Duke wants to talk to you, right? Othello is like, what is this about? And he's like, yo, there's this battle that's going to be happening in Cyprus, and he wants to talk to you about, what issues there are, or strategy-wise. So Othello is called to the Duke by Cassio, and Othello's second in command is Cassio. I just need you to make sure. So we'll go. We'll kind of do it visually like this, okay? So I'll write it like this. So Iago, right, is the mastermind. So Iago is the guy that is the puppet master, right? He plays both sides of Othello. He plays both sides of Rodrigo. And he plays both sides of Brabantio. Right? So he is really the type of guy that is going to do whatever he has to do to get ahead. Right? So Brabantio wanted to fight. Like, he wanted to go to Othello, and he was looking for a fight, right? But Othello suggests that, and he's like, nah, man, like, let's not do this right now. Let's go to the Duke. Let's go. I got to go to my meeting about the battle in Cyprus or whatever. But then afterwards, we can settle things up with the Duke, and the Duke can make his final say. Iago shows that he plays both sides very well in this. He even kind of like insults Rodrigo as Rodrigo is there with Brabantio. He's like, it's like, oh, that's that snake Rodrigo, right? And so he's kind of like, again, he's laying it on thick, right? And then the last one, okay? And this is the last thing that you guys need to do is just to watch this and then understand it. And then tomorrow you guys are going to have Act 2, Scene 1 to do. All right? So in Act 1, Scene 3, this is the new one. Remember, Othello is respected. He's also hated a lot for his race. He married the Senator Brabantio's daughter. Her name is Desdemona, and he loves her. Iago is very jealous and tries to set up Othello multiple times in this play. But this is one of those times that he kind of tries to set him up a little bit. So again, they're in the middle of the war. They're in the middle of a war, and the Duke calls in the middle of the night Othello to come and talk to him about war strategy. Right? Brabantio comes as well, and he is there and accusing Othello of using black magic to steal his daughter. Black magic, get it? Right? Othello explains how they fell in love. He tells the story of how he used to tell Brabantio all the time the stories of how he came up, how he escaped slavery, how he won many battles and stuff like that. And the Duke is kind of like, yo, like, this sounds pretty legit. Like, Brabantio, are you sure that he stole your daughter? And then Brabantio is firm, like, oh, he definitely stole my daughter, right? Othello explains how they fell in love. He listens. He's explaining to the Duke about that. So the Duke is like, yo, let's go fetch Desdemona. And everybody's okay with it. So Brabantio says, yo, let's just go get her. We're going to go get Desdemona. And Desdemona basically tells how he fell in love with Othello, or how she fell in love with Othello. She talks about how she basically makes all of Othello's claims pretty much, correct. So Othello has to go to war, okay? So they kind of settle that up. Desdemona decides, after she tells him that she's actually in love and all that stuff, and Othello realizes he has to go to war, Brabantio really has no choice other than to kind of like accept it at that point, right? So he's kind of salty in the background. Othello has to go to war. Desdemona decides that instead of staying with her father, or instead of staying at where they're in Italy, he decides that he wants to go, or she wants to go with Othello to war, to be there for him. The Duke asks Othello, who he trusts, to take care of things and his wife, and of course Othello says his faithful servant Iago, right? not knowing that Iago is kind of like screwing him over, kind of in the background, right? So we, as an audience member, know Iago's true intentions. Othello does not know, right? We know that that is an example of dramatic irony, right? We know something that the characters don't know, okay? So this is a big example of dramatic irony, and that's what makes this very interesting. So Brabantio is salty and says, if she lied to me, so this is the last lines here. Brabantio is salty after everything is whatever, after everything's okay now, after Othello decides that he's going to take Desdemona with him to Cyprus, they're going to live together, and he accepts that and Desdemona says that she is going to serve Othello just as Brabantio's wife served him. She is going to serve Othello that same way. And they end with kind of like a little bit of a foreshadow here. But not really. It's almost like a foreshadow. It's kind of like a joking foreshadow or like a tricking foreshadow. Brabantio is very salty and says, if she lied to me, her father, what makes you think she's not going to lie to you? And that, I think, right there is a seed that gets planted in Othello's head of doubt. That seed of jealousy, right? It gets planted. So Othello's like, man, you crazy, right? But in his head, he's like, he did lie to her, or she did lie to him. Maybe she would lie to me. I'm not sure, right? So then it ends. And how it ends, that scene ends, we see that Rodrigo is basically a puppet, right? The last scene, or the last moments that we get in there, we see that Rodrigo is kind of like really sad. He's like, I'm going to kill myself if I don't get Desdemona. I'm so sad. Blah, blah, blah. But Iago's like, look, dude, don't be like this. He's like, we need to use our stuff to our advantage, right? And he talks Rodrigo off a ledge, basically, and tells him, look, me and you, we're going to destroy the Moor, we're going to destroy Michael Cassio, and you are going to get Desdemona at the end of this, right? So again, he's kind of playing, he's kind of like the puppet master, right? So Iago convinces Rodrigo to sell all of his stuff and to use him to try to hurt Othello. So he's like, sell all your stuff, go to Cyprus, and it's gonna be our mission to destroy Othello, right? And at the end, Iago has a soliloquy, okay? And Iago's soliloquy at the end of which scene is it? At the end of scene 3, I'm gonna read it for us right now. So, hold on one second. I'm just going to pull it up right here. I'm going to make sure to read it for you guys just so that we are all understanding, the last soliloquy here. Okay? So let's see. Sorry. Okay. Here it is. Sorry, boys. Okay, so we are at the end of scene 3. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to read you guys Iago's soliloquy for scene 3. Okay? So this is basically how it ends. Now remember, the soliloquy is basically when he is on stage, the only one telling us of his true, deepest, darkest desires. So here we go. At the end of scene 3, Iago says, that's how I always do it. Getting money from fools. I'd be wasting my skills dealing with an idiot like that if I couldn't get something useful out of him. He's talking about Rodrigo. I hate the Moor. And there's a widespread rumor that he slept with my wife. Damn. I'm not sure it's true, but just the suspicion is enough for me. He thinks highly of me. That'll help. Cassio's a handsome man. Let's see how I can get his position and use him to hurt Othello at the same time. How? Let's see. So he's coming over the plan in his head. After a while, I'll start telling Othello that Cassio is too intimate with Desdemona. He's getting too close. Cassio is a smooth talker and a good-looking guy, the sort of man who you would expect to be a seducer. The Moor is open and straightforward. He thinks any man who seems honest is honest. People like that are easy to manipulate. So it's all decided. I've worked it out. With a little help from the devil, I'll bring this monstrous plan to success. And then he exits. And I think that's a really interesting thing, because he's kind of like at the end of the play, he gives us, or at the end of the scene, he gives us like his own thoughts, his own ideas, his own kind of like truth, right? And that's the first time that I think Iago really even speaks the truth, is when he's speaking to himself. It's kind of crazy. He's so manipulative in that way. All right, so if you stuck through, I am going to give you participation points. But in order for me to truly know that you stuck through and watched this entire video, okay, you need to, 1, comment on the post on Google Classroom that you are going to watch this video. Number 2, you need to comment on this video on YouTube the color socks you are wearing. Okay? So 1, comment the post on Google Classroom. Number 2, at the end of this video, on the very bottom of these comments on YouTube, you need to tell me what color socks you are wearing, and you'll get full participation. Have a great day, guys. Be safe.